On today's show, we will dive into the profound impact of AI on global GDP and job markets. We will discuss implications for various industries and jobs that might be at risk. I'm Daniel.
I'm Mateus.
And this is the Human AI Experience. We will be right back.
Okay, so Daniel, today we're talking about how the job market will be affected by the AI. And I was reading an article about that. The article was from Goldman Sachs, and they said that the GDP will increase in 7% because of AI in the next decade, which means that it represents like trillions of dollars. So we're gonna inject trillions of dollars in the industry. And then what they say is that there's a lot of productivity and innovations that comes with AI. And we all know about that. And then they said that in multiple sectors it's happening. So from the health care, like creative industries and finance, manufacturing, transport, in a lot of different industries will be affected by that. So the estimative of this is that they will impact 300 million jobs that they'll be automated. So 300 million people will be affected by these automations.
300 million people. It's basically an entire country. Of course, globally. We're talking globally, right? But it's a lot of people. Do they mention how those jobs will... Is it automation? Like, is the impact of AI?
Yeah, the impact of AI that they are talking about is mostly because of the automation. So they're talking more about jobs that are more mechanic, or they do things that they don't need to think, or they're not intellectual or creative jobs. They're more repetitive jobs, So then I was reading another article that I think it kind of matches with these examples, because I was trying to understand what kind of jobs and what kind of examples that they can give us. And they're in focus right now to change and to impact all of us. And the first jobs that they highlighted were media jobs, or positions in advertising, content creation, technical writing, journalism is at risk. That's what they say. And I do believe in that. We use ChatGPT a lot. Like you can write articles with ChatGPT. It enhances and make it so easy, the life, let's say. So for me, it's something that can definitely affect. Yeah, and you are from the industry, so maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Advertising, at least, is already being impacted in a certain level, and not necessarily just by generative tools, right, or image generative tools, but also copywriting, right? There's a lot that you can, you can increase the productivity, or you can increase the outcomes by using AI in a certain level. And the advertising industry works in a very fast pace. So there's a lot of demand, a lot of need for multiple outcomes. And that's why, people are always stressed by working in advertising, because you have to work a lot around the clock. So you basically need to produce a lot in very short periods of time. And if you can use a tool that can speed up that process, that is already very powerful and at least very efficient, right? The big question is, and I don't know if I know there's probably more jobs and more industries you want to cover, but at least I just want to go back to the media jobs, because you mentioned journalism. Because this is for me, this is a big one, because AI is not gonna... What kind of disruption are we talking about, right? Is it gonna be what we discussed previously, right, in other episodes? Is gonna be AI assisted, or this is just gonna be, there's going to be an AI generating news, right, covering news? Is that where we're going, or both? What do you think?
I don't know, because with the technology right now, like, the last updated ChatGPT did, it can recognize things, so it can show like TV, it can show like facts happening, and the GPT can say to you what's happening. So why not put cameras all over and then you control everything that's happening? I'm just giving an example, like a stupid example, but if you think about that, we can automate it, even reports, like journalists on the streets, if you think about it. The journalist industry is already in a crisis because of everyone now can be their own media, like as we are doing right now. We're doing a podcast and we're informing people, we're talking to people. And I think that's already something that affects the industry in general. So the journalist industry, they already been affected since they launched like the iPhone, let's say in 2008. From that point, I think the way that our consumption of media changed so much. So now the AI might be just the last kick
Yeah,
on this
I don't know
profession,
if I
unfortunately.
agree that journalism will be replaced because it's just not just reporting, right? There's like, it's not just describing a situation. There's a lot of layers into it, right? You have, it's a lot more complicated than it seems, right? So it's an interesting perspective, but I mean maybe parts of it will be able to be enhanced somehow. But yeah, the journalism industry, the news industry have been disrupted since the internet came because people all of a sudden want to consume news without paying for, and then that's why we have million websites with paywalls, or like there's more ads in a journalist page than anything else. So it's hard to pay the bills, hard to pay professionals to do this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
And then just to, I don't want to be canceled. I just told you one perspective of it. I don't think that they should be extinguished. On the contrary, I think we still need the human to create stuff. Maybe they can write faster articles with ChatGPT and with descriptions. But as you mentioned, there's so many layers, like political layers. There's so many opinion layers that you give your perspective of the situation. I think that's the beauty of journalism. It's giving different perspectives on the same situation.
Yeah, it definitely. I think augmenting human creation with AI is definitely happening, and some jobs will be completely extinguished, but it's hard to know which are going to be those, right? What are the most impacted ones? But yeah, media jobs in general are the ones that we can see already being affected directly. There's more to it, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the second industry that might be affected in like and they say extinguish jobs or let's say change jobs. So the legal industry will be affected. So roles such as paralegals and legal assistants are vulnerable because of AI. Because of course you need to read so much, and if you need to search manually or even in a website for specific information that you need, a person it's behind of a machine that can read like many articles, like thousand millions articles at the same time and find exactly the terms that you need. So I think this is already happening, and there's some cases. I think in Brazil it happened that a guy used ChatGPT to write a statement in front of the jury, and he was confronted about that, and then he admitted that he used AI to do it, but definitely do a better job than himself, because probably he's not a good lawyer. That's why.
Especially, I mean, jobs that they're only there to summarize information or to read a lot of things, but like factory, we can do a parallel when we talk about automation, right? With we can do a parallel with factories that are automated. There's a lot of robots performing tasks, right? Assembling things, but there's always somebody, a person overseeing that production. In the past, there would be a lot of people doing each individual parts of this production line, but nowadays there's a lot of robots and somebody overseeing. But that, all of a sudden, instead of 50 people, you have one or two or three. And this is definitely, it seems that we're definitely going that way in a lot of industries.
Yeah, and what the guy from Goldman Sachs he said, he mentioned that this is not the first revolution that we are passing through, like technology revolution. So what happened is that we adapt. He make a parallel. And then he said that in 1940, in comparison to nowadays, like 60% of the jobs that we are doing now, they didn't exist in 1940, which means that probably gonna happen the same, in the next 100 years, let's say. So we're gonna work in different jobs, and then we're gonna see how we did the jobs now, and we will look like dumbs or like primitive people in a way,
Yeah.
because definitely gonna change a lot. Okay, so the third sector will be market research analysis. So that's data analysis is always something that can be done by a machine, like in identifying trends and other collecting data, all these kind of roles that they can
Yeah,
be
data
automated.
analysis, right? Yeah, that's something that I can see very easy, like a machine kind of automating. But at the same time, again, there's always somebody that will have to go through the analysis from an AI to see if there's any, if it, at least now, there's a lot of,
Yeah,
it fails in a lot of those tasks as well, right? So you have to also double check the output. But at some point, it's going to be very assertive.
yeah. So that's something that, as I mentioned, like someone needs to analyze it, that like in put it in terms. So I think AI can do like this kind of a collection and do some previous analysis, but again, like the context and all we still need humans to create that. So I believe some jobs are gonna be lost, but some jobs will be enhanced by that. So the fourth sector that we're gonna be affected is financial sector. And then it said more in the terms of financial advisory and analysis of graphs. And I do believe that might be a machine might be more precise as humans, because we still have blood, so we still have this emotion side that we sometimes take actions in the wrong moments because we got scared or anything can happen. So maybe a machine can give more and better advices in these terms. And I see, for example, I know that it's a terrible thing to do, but day trade, some people they can maybe create bots to day trade, we never know. So this kind of things can be automated. I can definitely see this perspective of automation in these jobs. So this is a bit polemical, but the fifth one is teaching. So they said that the AI can assist in educational tasks such as lessons, planning, and the relation aspects of teaching. So the need for human interaction mean that completely automation is unlikely. So in that perspective, we still gonna need teachers, of course, and professors, but some tasks can definitely be automated. And I saw like this example of ChatGPT, I think, that there was a kid and a dad like talking, and they were like the dad was showing the kid how can he use like ChatGPT to study, and that was fantastic. Like, so I think that might be the future, because we still need to change the teaching industry. The model of schools are still kind of old. We still have schools with the same models as 200 years ago, and so maybe AI will help in these automations. I think this another tools that can help, I think, is the immersive tools like VRs and ARs, that you can see augmented reality in the. So maybe the book will show like, I don't know, wars happening in your front, so only for you to visualize and to get connected to. So I do believe that might be the way,
teaching,
like AI and
it's a
other
good point.
tools like that.
I think the education system that we have today, even though in the Nordic countries here, it is a bit different. If you compare, like they incentivize a lot of creativity, rational thinking very early on, right, in schools here. The education, there's definitely there's a lot of room for using these technologies like to improve teaching, right? I don't know if you've seen Google I/O, the Google Developer Conference that happened like I think last month. or in the beginning of this month. So basically, they did a demo, which I thought it was fantastic. And I've seen people later on reviewing that and saying that, oh my God, if I was in school with that tool, we would be, you would learn in a completely different way. So basically, what the model, which is I think is one of the Geminis that Google has, the AI tool that Google has is called Gemini, but they have like so many variants of that is very confusing. But one of the Geminis basically was taking a piece of paper, maybe it was like something, what was it? It was, I think, in relation to physics. You were learning physics, and then because it's a chatbot, you would ask, basically you would learn the material you were learning, and you would ask to create, you could ask to create a podcast with that subject. And then you would create a discussion between two people in a podcast.
Nice.
And then after that, you could ask to give you an example. So it basically start, let's say, can you do this example with a basketball, where the basketball setting, and then you would do and change the podcast, change the examples to that. So I mean, it's so much easier to learn that way, right? So it's very interactive. You can ask questions, you can change the subject. You can, let's say, if you want to learn, I don't know, physics, and then but you really like, I don't know, space. You are fascinated by space, by the planets. You could actually ask it to give you some examples with that with space matters, right? So because it's a subject topic that you, or a subject or a topic that you are familiar with, maybe it would be much easier for you to learn. That I could easily see improving a lot the learning experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I believe that you can create, for example, videos, like look in the perspective of the AI generated videos, maybe you can create your own history, while you are studying. So you can see from the perspective of the book, and you can kind of generate these kind of things instantaneously. That would be something nicer and interactive, So that's so many perspectives that we can envision for the next years. And I think it's really interesting, like how this is a really good example about the podcast. I saw that some of the news websites, they allow you to listen to the news instead of reading. So this is something that it might be more automatically. I don't know if it's automatically right now, but something that it matches so much what we're talking to. It's something I can see applicability in real life.
That I wanted to read an article, but I was on the way. I was biking, so I didn't want to. I mean, I have no time to eat, and I was wondering, what if I could ask, I don't know, Siri or whatever, to that word and read it for me, right? So I mean, maybe we're gonna get to that point at some point. Maybe with Apple Intelligent by the end of the year. Let's see. Even though they are promising that all the AI integration will happen, will start by the end of the year until next year, because I think there's a lot of complex stuff to roll out. But anyway, I was wondering how.
Yeah. I have used it already, and sometimes it just you can put it and read the article at the same time, so you kind of focus more and more in the information that you want to take from the article, instead of only being passive and reading or listening. So that might be another way of using it. So the last industry that will be affected, probably you already know about that or imagine that it's actually tech jobs. So they said that coders, programmers, and software engineers, they might be affected because of automation. And of course, you can ask ChatGPT to do coding for you. And the NVIDIA CEO, he was saying that you don't need to learn the code anymore. Of course, he was pitching about it, so he'll probably do this kind of a big announcement, so just these big codes should be used everywhere. So I feel we all come back to the same point, we still need humans to revise that, and just see if it's not working. So we will always need to revise and to fix it, on the way, these codes. So I believe this tool will gonna help, but it's not gonna be the end of the programmers era,
I think the last couple of years there was a movement before AI became like the conversation topic of every conversation, or maybe a couple of years ago there was a lot of websites that got popularized, like to for you, for basically you could code without knowing code, right? And like today there's I think the most famous one is Webflow. Webflow is really big now, especially because you can create a website and it can look really good, very professional, without knowing a single line of code. I work with a lot of developers, right? I don't want to undermine their jobs. I think they are super necessary and super important, but like I think the more intuitive way for things to evolve is when you don't need, when anybody can use it and anybody can create whatever they need without all the technicalities, right? So that's why in one of the episodes that we recorded, we talk about going from a visual interface to a conversational interface. And in the beginning, when the computers started, like they were for a very particular niche of people that couldn't know how to talk to a computer. Like you have to input commands, you have to write them, all of them down. So it was like a very slow and painful process, right? So the moment the computers got polarized, was when you introduced like an interface that was easy to use. First of all, you introduced the mouse, so you use the mouse to control the computer, and the interfaces were very self-explanatory. You didn't have to know code. And so maybe it's because I'm biased, I'm speaking from a design and a user experience perspective, but the less technical a tool is, the more likely it will become mainstream, because then it's easy to use. Everybody can just pick up and use it, right? So no wonder those jobs will be affected, is because
Yeah, definitely.
that's more or less the natural way we like to evolve, and like to when those tools become very easy to use, like a chatbot that can do anything that you ask.
Definitely, and I think that this revolution that you said when they launched like Windows and all the graphical interface of the computers, that was a big evolution too. So if you see the next gap, I use a lot of tools that automated, especially websites. I'm not a programmer. I don't know how to code properly. I know some of coding because when I was young, I used to do websites. Really dumb, yeah, websites, but I can understand a bit of the language in some aspects, but not as a professional programmer. And I use a lot of these automated tools because they're easy to use. They help a lot in making things happen, in a fast way. Instead of like hiring two people, a designer and another people to code, you just buy these tools and you can use it that quickly and then do it by yourself. And I'm this guy that does a lot of things by myself. I like to do that. For me, it's a pleasure to learn a new thing. So I totally get the point that you were saying, and
Yes.
I agree.
Should we wrap up? Can you please recap the top major industries that are perhaps might be impacted with AI?
Yeah, definitely. So media jobs, they might be affected by this automation. So legal industry, market research analysis, financial sector, teaching, and tech jobs. I think that's the 6 industries that they mostly consider in risk, let's say. But as we mentioned, like we're still gonna need people to curate information, to be the ones that we'll see in our humane perspective, So I don't think they're at risk at all, but probably they're gonna need to adapt in many ways.
Like we've been, if you work in any of these industries, at least be curious about AI. Just open ChatGPT, talk to it a bit, and see how you feel. We cannot close our eyes to technological evolution. I mean, we can see that we're basically going that way, right? So be curious, go explore.
Agreed.
So we came to the end of our episode. If you're interested in how AI is evolving and how you can introduce it in your life or your work, subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcast service and follow us for more. Let's explore AI together. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us at hello@humanAIXP.com or connect with us on Instagram at HumanAIXP. Thanks for listening. See you next week.